Auction records from AuctionsPlus show prices for the Chamberlain 4080 and 4280 have roughly doubled over the past decade. And those are not the only tractors from the 1980s and 90s that are worth considerably more today than the market expected when they came off the production line. 12 machines from that era are examined here, ranked by their current auction and private sale performance relative to their original production context. What they share is a combination of mechanical simplicity, documented working life, and in several cases, a specifically Australian heritage that the current market is pricing at a premium that would have seemed implausible 20 years ago. We start with the machine that sits at the foundation of this list. In 12th place, the Massey Ferguson 240, produced from the late 1970s through the 1980s, and sold extensively across Australia in the utility segment, represents the entry point to the vintage tractor value discussion because it demonstrates the baseline appreciation pattern that applies to the entire list. The MF240 is powered by the Perkins AD3 152 three-cylinder diesel in the same specification that powers the MF135, producing 35 to 45 horsepower in various configurations. It is mechanically identical in its fundamental architecture to the machines that independent workshops have been servicing for decades, and its auction appearance on AuctionsPlus and private listing on Farm Tender reflects a steady appreciation in examples with genuine original paint and low indicated hours. Current auction results for sound MF240 examples sit between $6,500 and $11,000 Australian dollars, representing a real terms appreciation over private sale data from a decade ago that Farm Tender community discussions place at 40 to 50% in clean examples. Parts support through SpareX AU and Borelli parts remains comprehensive. Known weak points are the Perkins injection pump. Overhaul recommended at 3,000 to 4,000 hours at approximately 400 Australian dollars, and the rear axle oil seal at 2,500 to 3,000 hours at approximately 140 Australian dollars. Fuel consumption runs at approximately 3.5 to 4 liters per hour. The MF240 is appreciating because it does what a simple agricultural machine should do, and the market has come to understand that this quality is not infinitely reproducible at any price point. 11th place belongs to the Case International 85 series. Specifically, the Case IH 885 and 985 tractors, produced in the mid to late 1980s following the merger of Case Corporation and International Harvester in 1984. These machines represent the first generation of Case IH branded tractors to reach the Australian market under the combined identity, and their auction performance on AuctionsPlus in recent years reflects both their mechanical capability and a collector interest in this transitional era of the brand. Current auction results for Case IH 855 and 955 examples in working condition sit between 14,000 and 24,000 Australian dollars for clean originals with honest hours. The 855 is powered by a Case IH 4-cylinder diesel in the 85 horsepower range, and the 955 in the 95 horsepower range, both naturally aspirated, mechanically injected, and calibrated for the broadacre work programs that defined Case IH's Australian market positioning in the 1980s. Parts support through Case IH Australia and independent aftermarket suppliers is active for major components. Known weak points are the hydraulic pump coupling at around 3,000 hours, replacement approximately 260 Australian dollars, and the clutch release bearing at 2,500 to 3,000 hours at approximately 180 Australian dollars. In 10th place, the Ford TW25, part of the TW series of high-horsepower tractors produced by Ford from the early 1980s, enters this list as the representative of Ford's large-frame broadacre offering from this era, and as a machine whose AuctionsPlus auction performance has surprised observers who expected the TW series to depreciate as modern alternatives increased in availability. The TW25 is powered by a Ford six-cylinder turbocharged diesel, producing approximately 170 horsepower, assembled at Ford's Basildon plant in England. It is a large-frame broadacre machine that was considered a high-specification option in its era, and that retains its relevance in the vintage broadacre discussion because its mechanical simplicity, pre-electronic, mechanically injected, straightforward hydraulics, is the characteristic that the current appreciation market is specifically rewarding. Current auction results for TW25 examples in sound working condition on AuctionsPlus sit between 22,000 and 38,000 Australian dollars for original examples with reasonable hours, representing a real terms appreciation over a decade that farm tender community discussions attribute to the combination of its working capability and its pre-electronic service profile. Known weak points are the turbocharger oil supply line at around 3,000 hours, inspection and replacement approximately 340 Australian dollars, and the front axle pivot at around 2,500 hours on cultivation properties, with replacement costing approximately 240 Australian dollars. Ninth place, the John Deere 4230. Produced at Waterloo, Iowa from 1973 to 1977 before being succeeded by the Soundguard generation, is a machine that technical forums on Yesterday's Tractors and Green Tractor Talk reference with a specific consistency when the subject is classic John Deere value in the Australian market. The 4230 is powered by a John Deere six-cylinder diesel, producing approximately 120 horsepower in a naturally aspirated configuration. It was among the first generation of tractors to introduce the iconic Soundguard body and appeals to collectors and working farmers in equal measure. Current AuctionsPlus auction results for John Deere 4230 examples in sound original condition sit between 18,000 and 32,000 Australian dollars, with the upper end of that range reserved for original paint, low-hour examples with documented service history. Parts support through John Deere Australia for this generation remains active for major components, and the aftermarket supply chain is well established. Known weak points are the injection pump timing drift at around 3,000 to 4,000 hours, calibration and overhaul approximately 480 Australian dollars, and the hydraulic pump coupling at around 3,000 hours at 260 Australian dollars. Eighth place, the International Harvester 1086, part of the IH-86 series produced from 1976 to 1984, and one of the most iconic American tractor designs of its era, has demonstrated consistent and in some cases surprising appreciation on the Australian auction market. Driven by a combination of working capability, recognizable design lineage, and the collector interest that the IH brand generates among operators who have a generational connection to the red machines that worked their family properties. Current AuctionsPlus results for IH 1086 examples in original condition sit between 20,000 and 34,000 Australian dollars. The 1086 is powered by a six-cylinder IH turbocharged diesel, producing approximately 110 horsepower. Part support through Case IH Australia for this generation covers major components. Known weak points are the hydraulic torque amplifier, which benefits from fluid change at every 500 hours on original machines to maintain clutch pack condition, and the cab heating and ventilation system seals, which deteriorate on examples that have been stored outdoors. Seventh place, the Chamberlain 4080. And we arrive at the machine that generates the most specifically Australian response of any tractor on this list. The Chamberlain 4080 was manufactured at the Chamberlain Industries facility in Welshpool, Western Australia, from the mid-1970s. Chamberlain Industries had been producing agricultural equipment in Welshpool since 1948, building machines for the demanding conditions of the Western Australian agricultural environment. Country that is hard on equipment in ways that machines designed for milder European or American conditions frequently struggle to accommodate. The 4080 is powered by a John Deere 6-cylinder diesel and was designed and built specifically for the WA broadacre environment by Australians who understood that environment from direct experience. John Deere acquired a significant shareholding in Chamberlain Industries in 1970, and the company was eventually wholly absorbed into John Deere in 1986. The Chamberlain brand was subsequently retired. The 4080 was among the last generations of tractors built under the Chamberlain name before the transition to John Deere badging for Australian-built product. That history, an Australian machine built in WA by a company that understood the Australian environment before the acquisition, is precisely the heritage that drives the collector and working farmer interest that AuctionsPlus auction data now reflects. Auction records from AuctionsPlus show prices for the Chamberlain 4080 have roughly doubled over the past decade. Current results for sound original examples with honest documented service history sit between $24,000 and $42,000 Australian dollars. Parts support through the Chamberlain-specific aftermarket supply chain, maintained by specialists in WA and through national rural parts suppliers, covers major components. Known weak points include the Perkins injection pump at around 3,000 to 4,000 hours at approximately 400 Australian dollars, and the front axle pivot assembly at around 2,500 hours on properties with mixed cultivation and transport use, with a complete pivot set costing approximately 260 to 300 Australian dollars. Fuel consumption runs at approximately 6 to 7 liters per hour. In sixth place, the Chamberlain 4280. The development of the 4080 produced in the early to mid-1980s, and the final model in the Chamberlain four-wheel drive broadacre series before the John Deere integration, carries the same WA provenance and the same collector and working farm appeal, with AuctionsPlus auction results that mirror the 4080's appreciation trajectory at a slightly higher base price, reflecting the more recent production date and the enhanced specification of the later model. Current auction results for Chamberlain 4280 examples in original condition, with documented service history, sit between $28,000 and $48,000 Australian dollars. The 4280 retains John Deere diesel power in a configuration calibrated for the WA broadacre environment. Parts support mirrors the 4080 through WA specialists and national suppliers. The same weak points apply at comparable hour intervals. The 4280's position in this list is immediately above the 4080 because its slightly newer production date, enhanced specification, and stronger AuctionsPlus performance record place it marginally ahead in the appreciation calculation. Fifth place belongs to the John Deere 4040, examined in detail in earlier content in this series as a mechanic's first choice purchase, which earns its position in this appreciation list on the basis of AuctionsPlus auction data that has tracked consistent price growth for sound original examples across the past decade. Current results for John Deere 4040 examples in original paint with documented service history sit between $22,000 and $38,000 Australian dollars. The pre-electronic architecture, Soundguard cab, and 6-cylinder Waterloo-built diesel that define the 4040's appeal to mechanics also define its appeal to the collector and working farmer vintage market. Fourth place, the John Deere 4240, the turbocharged variant of the same Soundguard generation, carries AuctionsPlus results that consistently exceed the naturally aspirated 4040 at equivalent condition, reflecting the higher horsepower output and the specific appeal of the turbocharged specification to broadacre buyers who intend to use these machines for real property work rather than display. Current auction results sit between $26,000 and $44,000 Australian dollars for clean original examples. The 4240's weak points and service costs are consistent with the data examined in the earlier content on this model. Third place, The Massey Ferguson 390, produced in the late 1980s and early 1990s, and one of the last of the pre-Tier 4 Perkins-powered Massey Ferguson utility range to reach Australia in meaningful volume, represents the newest era machine on this list, and the one whose appreciation trajectory is still in its early stages relative to the vintage machines above it. Powered by the Perkins 4-cylinder diesel in the 90 horsepower range, the MF390 is simple, well supported through Sparex AU and AGCO Australia, and increasingly recognized at clearing sales as a machine whose mechanical accessibility is a premium in the current repair cost environment. Current AuctionsPlus auction results for MF390 examples, in sound original condition, sit between $15,000 and $26,000 Australian dollars. Second place, the Ford 8210, the Series 10 Ford utility tractor in the 110 horsepower bracket, produced in the early to mid-1980s, sits immediately below the Chamberlain models in this list on the basis of its AuctionsPlus appreciation data and its consistent demand from WA and SA grain farmers who value the Ford engine's documented longevity and the machine's pre-electronic service profile. Current auction results for Ford 8210 examples, in original working condition, sit between $17,000 and $29,000 Australian dollars. And finally, in first place, the Chamberlain 4080 and 4280 share this position as the Australian market's most compelling appreciation story in the 1980s and 90s vintage tractor category. Auction records from AuctionsPlus, showing prices that have roughly doubled over the past decade, combined with a specifically Western Australian industrial heritage that no other tractor in this list carries, and a working capability that continues to earn these machines a place in active broadacre farming programs in WA, rather than merely in private collections, make the Chamberlain the correct answer to the question of which tractor from this era is worth the most in Australia today, in financial terms and in historical terms simultaneously. Across all 12 tractors examined in this countdown, one truth is stark. The machines that are worth the most in Australia today are not the ones that were the most technologically sophisticated when they were new. They are the ones built to a mechanical standard that the current market has come to understand is not being replicated at any price point. And, in the case of the Chamberlain, built with a specifically Australian intelligence about Australian conditions that the market is now pricing at exactly the premium that heritage deserves. If this countdown changed the way you think about the tractor sitting in someone's old shed at the next rural clearing sale, hit subscribe, leave a like, and share it with someone who has a Chamberlain on their place. Tell us in the comments which of these 12 machines you have run, and what the hours on the clock say about the appreciation argument.